There are nights when you lie still in the darkness, feeling far too exhausted to keep trying to become someone good enough. You look back at your life and wonder why other people can love themselves so naturally, while you struggle with every smallest thought inside your head. Are you too weak? Are you simply not good enough? Or deep inside, have you always carried the feeling that you are missing something, that the whole world seems to have except you? So many people walk through life with a smile on their lips, while inside they carry a heart that is silently fighting against itself. They wake up every day, finish their work, talk to people, post happy pictures, but when they are finally alone, they hear a cold voice echoing inside their mind. You are not good enough. That voice does not scream, it whispers, and that is exactly why it is more dangerous than anything else. It slips into every moment of your life, making you doubt your own worth even when you are doing very well. You try to change yourself to be loved more. You try to become more perfect, kinder, more successful, stronger. But the more you try, the emptier you feel. Because the painful truth is this: if a person cannot love themselves, then no matter how much the whole world loves them, they will still feel lonely. And that is the greatest tragedy of modern humanity. Not a lack of money, not a lack of success, but a lack of peace when being alone with one's own soul. In Buddhist philosophy, there is something very profound that few people truly understand. The greatest suffering does not come from the outside world, but from the resistance inside the mind. We create wars against ourselves. We constantly judge ourselves without stopping. We look into the mirror and see only flaws. We remember the past and see only mistakes. We look toward the future and see only fear. In the end, we become the prisoners of our own souls. Perhaps for a very long time, you have become used to apologizing for your own existence. You apologize when you talk too much. Apologize when you stay silent for too long. Apologize when you are sad. Apologize when you need to be loved. You live as if you are a burden that must be tolerated instead of a human being worthy of love from the very beginning. And slowly, you forget what it feels like to simply be yourself without having to prove anything. But think deeply about this. A tree does not hate itself for growing slowly. The moon does not feel ashamed because there are days when it is incomplete. A river does not blame itself for becoming muddy after the rain. Nature has never fought against itself. Only humans create suffering by endlessly rejecting themselves. Buddhism does not teach people to become perfect. Buddhism teaches people to awaken. And the very first awakening is realizing that you do not need to become someone else in order to deserve love. In this very moment, with all your wounds, mistakes, fears, and cracks within your soul, you are still worthy of being treated with compassion, especially by yourself. There is something strange about life. We often give more kindness to others than to ourselves. When a friend fails, you tell them it is okay, that everyone has moments of weakness, but when you fall, you become so cruel to yourself that you cannot forgive yourself. You become the harshest judge in your own life, and then you wonder why your heart always feels tired. The truth is, no one can heal a soul that is being hurt every single day by its own owner. Do you know why many people still feel empty even after achieving what they wanted? Because they believe self-love is a reward that comes after success. But in Buddhist wisdom, loving yourself is not the destination. It is the foundation. A tree cannot grow if its roots are rotten. A human being also cannot truly be happy inside they are filled with self-hatred. Perhaps you have spent years being hurt by the words of others. Perhaps you were once looked down on, abandoned, betrayed, or never truly felt important in someone's eyes. And over time, you began to believe the negative things others said about you. You turned old wounds into your identity. You no longer say, "I was hurt," but instead began to think, "I am someone unworthy of love." That is the most dangerous illusion the mind can create. Buddhism calls this ignorance. When people see everything through the fog of suffering and forget their true nature, you are not the mistakes you once made. You are not the pain you once endured. You are not the rejection others gave you. All of those things are only clouds passing through the sky of consciousness. But because they stayed for too long, you began to believe they were the sky itself. And then one day, you will realize this: the person you have waited for your entire life to save you was never anyone else but yourself. Not through perfection, not through becoming stronger than everyone else, but by stopping the fight against your own heart. There are wounds that do not need to be fixed immediately. They only need to be held gently. There are days when you do not need to conquer life. You only need to not abandon yourself. That alone is already a very deep form of awakening. Imagine one day waking up without feeling the need to race in order to prove your worth. You look into the mirror and no longer hate the person inside it. You begin speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. You allow yourself to rest without feeling guilty. You forgive your old versions instead of endlessly punishing them. And for the first time in many years, your heart is no longer a battlefield. That is when true healing begins. Because loving yourself is not looking at yourself and thinking you are perfect. Loving yourself is still embracing yourself, even when you are imperfect. It is understanding that you are still worthy of peace even when life is unstable. It is knowing that your value does not increase when you are loved and does not decrease when you are rejected. In a world that constantly makes people feel like they are never enough, sitting quietly and saying to yourself, "I accept who I truly am," is an incredibly powerful act. And maybe right now you do not completely believe that yet. Maybe there is still a part of you that doubts whether you are truly worthy of love. But that is okay. Healing does not happen overnight. A lotus flower does not bloom the moment its seed is planted deep in the mud. It grows little by little in silence. You are the same. You do not need to force yourself to become better immediately. You only need to begin by stopping the hatred toward yourself. That is all. And sometimes that alone is the very first step that changes an entire life. There comes a point in life when a person begins to realize that the greatest pain does not come from being hurt by others, but from the way they see themselves after those wounds. A single criticism may last only a few seconds, but the insecurity leaves behind can follow someone for many years. A moment of rejection may pass quickly, yet it is enough to make a heart begin believing that it is unworthy of love. And somehow, without even noticing, you begin living the life of someone who is always trying to become enough, good enough to be recognized, interesting enough not to be abandoned, strong enough so no one can see the wounds inside. But the harder you try, the more exhausted you become, because there is no ending point in searching for self-worth from the outside world. Today you are praised, tomorrow you fear being judged again. Today you feel valuable, tomorrow one small failure is enough to make you question your entire identity. That is why so many people who seem to have everything are still unhappy. They have stable jobs, but no inner peace. They have relationships yet still feel lonely. They smile in front of crowds, but cry when they are alone, because deep inside they have never truly felt loved unconditionally. Buddhism says that human suffering comes from attachment, but sometimes the thing people cling to most is not money or fame, but an idealized image of themselves. We create in our minds a perfect version of who we should be, then torture ourselves for not becoming that person. We want to always be strong, always positive, always successful, always loved. But real life does not work that way. There are days when you are weak. There are days when you feel lost. There are days when you simply want to disappear from all the noise of the world. And that does not make you a failure. A flower does not bloom all year round, yet that does not make it worthless. Even the sun cannot shine 24 hours a day. Everything in nature has moments of light and moments of darkness. Only humans force themselves to be perfect at all times, then suffer because they cannot achieve the impossible. Perhaps you have spent too many years trying to become the version of yourself that others wanted, until you forgot what it feels like to truly live as yourself. You smile while your heart is hurting. You say, "I'm fine," while your soul is exhausted. You continue enduring everything because you are afraid of disappointing others. But then one day you look back and realize that you abandoned yourself a very long time ago. That is the saddest part. Not when others stop loving you, but when you stop loving yourself too. In meditation, there is a very profound truth. The mind is like the surface of a lake. When the lake is constantly disturbed, you cannot see anything clearly. And modern life has made the human mind more restless than ever before. Comparison, pressure, expectations, the fear of being left behind, all of these create an inner storm that causes people to lose connection with themselves. You begin measuring your worth through likes, through validation, through the way others treat you. But if your value depends on the eyes of other people, you will spend your whole life anxious. Because human hearts change faster than the weather. Today people appreciate you. Tomorrow they may forget you. If your happiness lies in the hands of others, you will always feel unstable. Buddhism does not teach people to search for value outside themselves. Buddhism teaches people to return inward, because when you truly sit quietly with yourself, you begin to realize that beneath all the pain, there still exists a very pure part of you that life has never managed to destroy. You were not born to hate yourself, but this world makes people forget that. Since childhood, we have been taught to become better, more beautiful, more successful. Very few people teach us that human worth does not lie in achievements, but in the honest presence of a person in this life. There are people who spend their entire lives trying to prove they are worthy of love, while never understanding that true love does not begin from others. It begins with the way you treat yourself during your darkest days. When you fail, do you hold yourself gently or continue criticizing yourself? When you are exhausted, do you allow yourself to rest, or do you immediately feel guilty? When you make mistakes, do you learn to forgive yourself or continue punishing yourself with old memories? That is where true self-love begins. Many people believe self-love is selfish, but in Buddhism, a person cannot offer peace to others if they themselves are full of chaos inside. You cannot give away something you do not possess. If your heart is constantly drained by self-hatred, then your relationships will slowly become places where you search for rescue rather than genuine love. Therefore, Healing is not becoming a new person. Healing is returning to the person you truly were before the world made you believe you were not good enough. Maybe that journey will be very slow. There will be days when you doubt yourself again. There will be nights when loneliness returns. There will be moments when you feel like you are making no progress at all. But remember this. A person learning to love themselves is not someone who no longer feels pain. It is someone who, even while hurting, no longer abandons themselves. And perhaps that is the most beautiful form of compassion. When you begin treating yourself gently, your entire inner world will start to change. You no longer try to become someone else. You no longer desperately seek validation from everyone around you. You begin to understand that peace does not come from life becoming perfect, but from your heart finally stopping its war against itself. And one day, you will sit in silence and realize that the most miraculous thing has happened. Not that life suddenly became easier, not that all pain disappeared, but that finally you are no longer your own enemy. And after all the wounds, the years of self-doubt, the moments of silently enduring everything alone, perhaps the most important thing a person needs to learn is not how to become perfect, but how to embrace themselves with gentleness, because this life will always have days that do not go as planned. There will be doors that close no matter how hard you try. There will be people who leave even though you love them sincerely. There will be moments when you feel lost within your own life. But no matter what happens, please do not turn your back on yourself ever again. You have lived too long trying to become a version of yourself that others could accept. Perhaps it is time to allow yourself to live as a real human being, imperfect, sometimes weak, sometimes exhausted, yet still worthy of love. Buddhism teaches that everything in life is impermanent. Pain will eventually pass. Dark days will eventually come to an end. But what truly determines whether a person is at peace or not does not depend on whether life still has difficulties. It depends on whether, when facing hardship, they still know how to return and embrace their own soul. There are people who spend their entire lives searching for light everywhere, without realizing that the first lamp they need to light has always existed within themselves. And perhaps today, you still do not completely love yourself yet. Perhaps there are still wounds that have not healed, memories that make your heart ache whenever they return to your mind. But that is okay. A lotus flower does not bloom in a single day. True healing always takes time. What matters is that from this moment on, you no longer see yourself as someone who must be fixed in order to become worthy. You have always been worthy from the very beginning, not because you are successful, not because you are recognized, not because someone chose to stay beside you, but simply because you are a human being trying to live, trying to love, trying to keep moving forward, even after being hurt so deeply. That alone is already something incredibly beautiful. So the next time you look into the mirror, try looking at yourself with gentler eyes. Do not only see your flaws, do not only remember your mistakes. Remember that behind all that exhaustion is a soul that has been incredibly strong to make it to today. You are not weak because sometimes you want to cry. You are not a failure because there are days when you lose your direction, and you are not worthless just because someone failed to see the light within you. The sun does not stop shining simply because someone closes their eyes. Life changes greatly when you stop fighting against yourself, when you no longer see yourself as a problem that needs to be solved, but as a soul that deserves to be loved. And perhaps that is the deepest awakening of all, the moment you realize that peace does not come from becoming someone else, but from finally accepting who you truly are. If this video touched a part of your heart, leave a comment sharing your feelings or your own journey. Sometimes a single sincere message can become a light for someone silently suffering who happens to read it. And if you want to continue walking together on the journey of healing, awakening, and rediscovering inner peace, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next videos about Buddhist philosophy and inner transformation. May today be the day you begin treating yourself with more love, because after everything, the person who will stay beside you until the end of this life has always been yourself.